This is Math Studies Lesson 11.3, Finding Angles. We are starting with the exact same ratios from the last two lessons. We know that the sine is the opposite over hypotenuse, the cosine is the adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent is the opposite over adjacent. So I like to throw that at the top of every single page that we're working on with these right triangles to make sure that I remember to set up my fractions the right way and choose the correct trig function. And we're going to start off the exact same way, finding angles as we did on finding sides. With this right triangle, I'm going to label the A, the H, and the O. I like to do hypotenuse first. It's always across from the right angle. The opposite would be the side farthest from the marked angle. And the adjacent would be the side closest to the marked angle. I see the hypotenuse is 5. I see the opposite is 4. I don't know anything about the adjacent side, so I'm going to ignore that. Based on the two letters that I have left, O and H, I'm going to choose either sine or cosine or tangent. I need an adjacent to write a tangent. I need an adjacent to write a cosine, so I am left with sine. So far, all of that was exactly the same as finding sides. Here's where it changes. Instead of doing the sine of something, the sine of the angle, because I don't have the angle, we're going to do the sine inverse. And if you look at your calculator, you see your sine and your cosine and your tangent buttons. Right above those, they have the sine with a little -1, cosine with a little -1, tangent with a little -1, and we access those by pushing the second button first, and then we'd get the sine inverse, or the cosine inverse, or the tangent inverse. So hitting that second button first will activate the inverses. I'm doing sine inverse on this one, but sine inverse of what? Let's figure that out. We're going to write the fractions the exact same way as we did for finding sides. So in a big parentheses, I'm going to put the opposite number on top. In this example, my opposite was labeled by the 4. And then I'm going to put my hypotenuse number on the bottom. And this one had a hypotenuse of 5. So this is actually even easier than finding sides. You don't have to worry about which one do I multiply, which one do I divide. You just need the fraction. So on my calculator, I can type the sine inverse of 4/5. And that's all I need. As long as I'm in degree mode, I get the answer in degrees. If you're in radian mode, we need to make sure we change that 2 degrees. If you don't know how to do that on your own personal calculator, let me know. I can help you figure it out. So I have 53.1 degrees is my angle for X. That's it. Same deal. A, H, and O. I like H first. H is always across from the right angle. I like O next. O is farthest from the marked angle. The adjacent would be the closest one. H has a number, A has a number, O is blank. Based on having an A and an H left over, I have to choose cosine. I cannot write a sine or a tangent if I do not know the opposite. Looking for an angle, I do an inverse, and the fraction is A over H. My A is my 8. My H is my 18. Just got to type it out. So the cosine inverse is second cosine. And then we go 8 over 18. And that gives me 63.6 degrees. Moving on. I got 2 more of these. These are really exactly the same. So I'm going to do them very fast. I have H. I have O. I don't care about A. O and H is sine, opposite over hypotenuse. Let's rank this one out really quick too. I have my opposite from X. I have my adjacent to X. I don't need anything about the hypotenuse. O and A is tangent. Looking for an angle, we do the inverse. Opposite over adjacent. Okay? Sine inverse, 12.5 over 15. And tangent inverse, I can just go 0.5. I know 7 over 14. That is 56.4. and 26.6. So hopefully that wasn't too fast. Give those a try if you need to on your own. Pause, rewind. Let's go to example C. 2 hikers leave their campsite. Emily walks east 2.85 kilometers and Savannah walks south 6.03 kilometers. What is the measure of the angle between Emily and the campsite from Savannah's perspective? So I have someone walking east and someone walking south. That is a right angle right there. And I'm going to just finish off this triangle. Emily walking east, this should be 2.85 km. Savannah walking south, this should be 6.03 km. I'm going to add an E for Emily, and I'm going to add an S for Savannah. What is the measure of the angle between Emily and the campsite from Savannah's perspective? So from Savannah's perspective means we're trying to find the angle here between Emily and the campsite. So that's why it's the opposite from there. With my triangle drawn up, I can do the exact same things that we were doing up above. The hypotenuse, don't really care about. There's no number there. I'm not trying to figure it out. The opposite would be across from the S, and the adjacent would be right next to it. O and A tells me to use a tangent inverse to calculate the angle that Savannah can see. We put the opposite on top of a tangent divided by the adjacent. Oops. So I can type that one out. Tangent inverse, 285, 603. And that would be a 25-degree angle. Letter B, how far apart are Savannah and Emily? So now we're not talking about an angle anymore. We're talking about how long is this side. And we have a couple different options for calculating this side length. We could go back to Pythagorean theorem, but I want to practice the solving for sides method from 11.2 instead. And to do that, I'm going to basically add an x here because that's what I'm trying to figure out. And that was the hypotenuse. So now I know that we have a 25-degree angle down here, and I'm trying to find the hypotenuse. So I need to use h. And I have options. We usually have a blank side, right? So I can ignore the O if I have the A, or ignore the A if I have the O. But I can choose. If I ignore the A, I have O and H. I can do a sign. And I would do the cross multiply divide with a sign, and it would give me that answer. But I could ignore the O and do the A and the H. I could do a cosine. Either way, it gives me the same answer. So either a cosine with the 6 number or a sine with the 2.85 number. I'm feeling sine today. So I'm going to ignore this one. O and H is sine. I'm going to do a sine of 25 degrees. So this is what we did in 11.2. And sine fraction is opposite over hypotenuse. So I have my 285 on top and my variable hypotenuse on the bottom. Once it's set up, we cross multiply and divide. So I'm going to go 285 times 1 divided by sine 25. 285 sine 25. And I get 6.7 kilometers. That's it for this one. Good luck on your exercises, and please let me know if you have any questions.